Well, hello everybody, welcome to my channel, Sewing and Side Hustle. Alright, so let's recap where we're at and what we're doing here. We've already opened the box that had the rod and discovered we had an estate rod. And an estate rod or a decorative rod, they're both the same thing. That's about the pin set, so we'll get into that later. But anyway, so we have a decorative rod. We've hung it. I've shown how to get it level. I've shown where all the numbers come from, and now I have the numbers in the shop. And so let's go over them real quick before I finish this order of drapes. So we know we have a 46-inch rod face. We know we have a return of 3 inches, and we know we have an overlap of 3.5 inches. So how we figure this is we go with the 46-inch rod space and we add 6 inches. We're adding 6 inches because there's 2 returns. Then we're going to add 1 overlap, which is 3.5 inches. That'll give us the overall width. That width would be 55.5 inches. Then we will divide that by 2 because it's a pair and come out with 27 3/4 of an inch. Now what we do is we take the 27 to figure out our spaces. We're going to figure our spaces next. We're going to take the 27 3/4. We're going to subtract the 3.5 overlap. We're going to subtract the return, the 3-inch return. So we're subtracting 1 overlap and 1 return. That leaves 21.25 inches. We know we have 6 spaces because we have 7 pleats. So we divide 6 spaces into 21.25 for one side of the pair. That comes out to be 3.5 inch spaces. So we need a 3.5 inch space. We also know, since we installed that rod, and when I got everything up there and in place and everything like it has to be, and this is why it's so important to install the rod first, my actual spaces are going to be somewhere right around 3 1/4, maybe just a little bit less than 3 1/2. And that's a good thing because that means I'll have a little bit of slack for settle back. And settle back, as I explained, is when the drape drops back after you pull it shut. With this extra little bit of room in the spaces, it won't tend to do that. That'll fix that problem. So that's good. Alright, so now we know we got to have 6 spaces at 3.5 inches. So now we need to know how to measure for our pleats. So we go back to the 27 3/4 inches. That's the overall width that we need for our spaces and our overlap and all of that. We subtract that number, 27 3/4, from 50 inches is what this drape will end up being after I turn the side hems in it. So we'll have a 50-inch piece of fabric here. We're going to subtract our spaces from that and our overlap and our return for one side. Because this is going to be one side of the drape. And we will end up, let me get my, we subtract that, and then, let me see, let me get over here where it says pleats. Alright, so we start with 50 inches, we subtract 27 3/4, that leaves us 22.5 inches left over. See, that was faster than me going over here and refiguring that. Alright, for 7 pleats. So we take our 22.25, and we divide that by 7. Right, and that ends up being a 3-inch pleat, give or take just a little bit. It's real close to 3 inches. It's right, it's 3 inches. Okay, so now we know we got to have 3 inches for our pleats. We got to have somewhere, I'm pretty sure it's going to be 3 1/4. I actually know because I've already got it all laid out here, so I don't have to do that part for you. But before we get to that though, we're going to talk about how we're assembling this drape. Now I already have the bottom hems turned and sewn. They're complete, the bottom hems. And in all our other videos you saw us do the header first. Well, this drape is going together with what I have talked about already in an earlier video, iron and buckram. And remember, the top right here is really, really rough. That's the glue side. That's where the glue is. And then the back side is smooth. Alright, so we're going to turn the glue side up. And here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to stop here and get the camera and walk around the fabric. This fabric does have a repeat. I'm not going to dive into repeats and how to figure repeats or yardage at this point. We're just going to get this drape assembled and get it hung on the wall. So here we go. Again, let me get the camera and just kind of wander around and get some close-ups of everything, how we have it all put together, and talk about it. Stand by. Well, first of all, this is our size master. I've talked about it in an earlier video, and it clamps everything down and holds it really, really straight and tight. And as you can see, we have our bottom hem, not our header, but our bottom hem clamped in there. Okay, and it's clamped on the finish. See, I don't know if you can see it or not because it's all faded real bad, but it's clamped on the finished length, which is 86. Okay, so now we still have our header. And the reason that we've started with the hem in is because we wanted to use the iron in header and we want to speed this job up. This is a really fast way to make a really nice set of drapes. For commercial purposes, we rarely do this unless it's a specific order or somebody requests it or something different. But I like using iron and buckram. Alright, so let me put the camera back up there and show you how it works. Alright, as I showed you, we're clamped in at the far end of the table on 86 inches. And the lining is 3 inches. It's a 3-inch hem in the lining. It is a 4-inch hem in the drape. The 3-inch hem where it's sewn has to line up on top of the 4-inch hem where it's sewn. So what happens is if this drape is hanging, you wouldn't want to have 2 seams showing in the sun because the sun will shine through this and you would have 2 seams, right? So what we have done is we've lined our lining on top of our fabric where it's sewn in the bottom hem, so you would only have 1 seam visible. The reason for the 3-inch bottom hem in the lining versus the 4-inch bottom hem in the fabric leaves you 1 inch between the bottom of the lining and the overall length of the drape, or the bottom of the drape. So you have that 1 inch right there that you can play with, and it keeps the lining from falling out from under the drape. It just makes a better drape. So that's what that's about. All right, so that's all set. That's done. I will say that when you do a drape this way, if there's any irregularities, anything on the far end of the table in the hem, it will transmit up to this end. That's why normally, in most cases, like 99% of the time, we'll put our header in first. That way there will be a less chance of a mistake at the header, and you wouldn't notice any little mistake at the hem. But this is the way we're doing this one because I want to show how to use iron and buckram. Alright, so again, this is the glue side. It's the rough side of the buckram, and it's got the glue on it. Let me see, how do I want to do this? I gotta fire up the iron, so I'll be back. Okay, the iron's hot, but before we can iron this in, we have to trim some. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get our fabric on the 0 mark. So we have our overall length of 86 inches. This is where we get our 86 inches from. Self-explanatory, of course. Get everything just right how that goes right on that mark, right on the 0 mark. And I actually have a line drawn on my table all the way across. The next thing we have to do is, since we're going to be ironing this to the ironing buckram, we're also going to iron the lining into the ironing buckram. So what I have here is too much fabric. Let me tuck this under there so you can see. See, we got a 4-inch buckram and I got a 4-inch piece of fabric on top of it. All right, and this is all from your allowance. Remember our 12-inch allowance? All right, so now what I'm going to do is I want to take this ruler, it's 2 inches wide, and I'm going to lay it right evenly on the very top of the drape, right where it goes, right there. Make a mark. Alright, so let's talk about that mark. This is a white fabric that you will be able to see through. If I leave this mark on here, if I leave this line I drew on here, it will show. So I want to make sure that I cut that line off the fabric. I want to make sure that line goes away when I cut this. So here we go, we're going to make our cut. Now, I found out something. I had a hard time telling the front from the back on this, and you can actually tell because the front is really detailed and the back is not quite so detailed. So there is a definite difference. Alright, let's get to the ironing this on. First thing we're going to do is make sure our fabric is nice and lined up on our line still after we cut it. Make sure our buckram's up in here nice and tight where it goes. Now, ironing buckram requires a lot of steam and a lot of heat. And you just simply stay on the fabric and I'm going to just stick it down good because I have to move it away from the pins to be able to iron it. I don't want to melt those little tops off of those pins. I've already put them in the table where the pleats and spaces go, so we don't have to do that. I can speed things up a little bit. I did this last night. You got to stay off of this. Can't get on that. And you need the steam. I want to talk about also when I'm doing this is I want this drape is going to be a soft drape. It's not going to be crisp. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number 1 reason I want it soft is because it's in a bedroom. And I feel like, in my bedrooms at least, I like my curtains and stuff to be nice and soft. And it has a better bedroom feel, I think. The other reason is this is an embroidered fabric and you really can't iron it. If you iron the embroidery, it could damage it. Alright, so now that I got that iron good, we're going to move it down a little bit so I can iron it even better away from those pins. Nothing like being prepared, is there? The pins will save me time, but it's interfering in the iron. Alright, here we go. We're good. Now, we iron the crap out of this. What is on my iron? See, that's parts of that. That's parts of the embroidery. That's why we aren't ironing this. Yeah, just burn that little bit of embroidery off. Okay, so that's the other reason we're not putting iron on the side hems or on the face of the drape. Let's get her straightened back out here now and show you how the lining goes. Here we go. Everything's lined up. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Now, just flip our lining right over. See, it's turned under. Now, you're looking at the face of the lining. We're doing this back to back. And you'll notice when we sew our buckram in, it's face to face. When we iron it in, it's just like the drape is finished when we're done. We don't have to turn it. All we have to do is pin it. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm leaving a reveal here, not quite a 1/4 inch, a little more than an 1/8 at the top. So the lining at the top is maybe an 1/8 inch shorter than the fabric. And I'm going to iron this because I can. And get all the way across it because there's fabric everywhere. See, and this time it's not leaving anything on the fabric, so that's what that was. That was burning that embroidery and picking it up with the iron and moving it. Alright, so that's how that works. What I'm showing you is the embroidered pattern. If you're going to order this fabric, you'd have to measure the distance between that repeat. I don't know how well it's coming in focus. I'll walk around to the other side and see if I can do a better job. If you were going to order this fabric, you would have to know the distance between this repeat right here, which is 10 inches. And so then you would have to figure out how many cuts you wanted for your width. Where'd they go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Right there. I'm trying to show how each one of these little flowers line up on the side of the drape almost perfectly all the way down. That's important. You'll see why when we hang it. Anyway, so real quick, you'd have to figure out how many of those 10-inch repeats you needed to make a 100-inch drape, which would be 10. Then you'd have to add 1 for your it's 10 inch. You'd have to add 2 for your which would be 20 inches more for your allowance. So we'll get into how to figure repeats at some point. I want to just do a whole video on it because it's important. There's no sense in ordering $500 worth of fabric and find out you don't have enough, or you got way too much. Alright, so that's the first turn, and again, I'm not going to iron this. I'm just rubbing it with my hand all the way down, getting a little bit of a crease in there. And this is what I mean by a soft drape. I don't want sharp corners. So let me set the camera down. Alright, let's recap. This drape is all finished. All I have to do is pin the pleats. But before I do, I want to go over them one more time, real quick, and show, because we went to all the trouble to go hang a rod. We figured out our rod's face, that length, 46 inches. We figured out our return and our overlaps and all that information. So let's see how it turned out. So we know we need 7 spaces. So we have right here, let me take these glasses off, can't see far away with them on. We have our 3-inch return. Okay, that's what we got there, 3-inch return, right? So now we got a space. So and then this 3-inch return and a pleat space. So it's be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pleats. Is that right? This will be our overlap. Pleat, space, pleat, space, pleat, space, pleat, space, pleat, space, pleat, space, pleat. Yep, that's right. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pleats, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. That's what we want. And let me pin it up, and we'll get a final measurement and see how we end up. See. Trick of the trade. Because we were ironing the header, we got a little bit of that embroidery fabric or embroidery thread where it came out. Burned it just a little bit and got it on the lining somehow when we ironed that on. So there's no crying in drapery making. Here's the trick. Hello. So I don't want this stuff on my drape. And once I put the pleats together, I can't do this. So you notice I'm not trying to rub this stuff off, because you just rub it down in the drape, get a little piece of tape, and pick it right off. It works for dog hair, cat hair, anything. If you drop it in the floor and you get a lot of dust from your floor, don't cry. Get it up on the table nice and flat, don't rub it. Get a piece of tape, clean it up. And there you have it. Now we're ready to pleat. Alright, to do that, we start here with our overlap. Yep, that's the return side. Then the next set of pins, there's 2 of them, right? Put them together. Take one out, throw it away. And then put the other one. Pin that pleat together. Alright? So now we got a space. Another pleat. Always holding on to everything nice and tight, and pull it up there, make sure it's straight. Space, another pleat. Supposed to have 7 when we're done. I don't know if we will. I bet we do. Well, I hate these little skinny pins. That's why I like the T-pins. They're nice and thick. They don't bend. Let's keep going right across the drape. Pin them up. Yep, there it went. I'm still clamped down there, and I don't want to move my camera. I have to be careful. I'm going to snatch the camera off the tripod. Alright, there you have it. It's all pleated. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pleats, what we need. Alright, let's see what it measures across there. See what our finished width ended up being. I got a ruler down here just for that. Let's see, first let's remember what was the overall width we needed for one side of this drape. And that was supposed to be 27 3/4. It's supposed to be 27 3/4. Oh, I got it too. Down this way. We want 27 3/4. Alright, well, I got 27 exactly. So what will happen now is I will sew right behind the pin, right? And that'll give me just a little bit extra in my space. Right behind the pin, a little bit extra in my space. By the time it's 7 pleats is sewn that away, that'll give me my extra 3/4 of an inch I need. Alright, so, I want to show the pleats we're going to put in. The type of pleats we want. See, this pleat here could be any number of types of pleats, really. Anyway, it's hard to do it without it being sewn, but so we'll actually collapse that down. And this will pinch this away. This is called in some places a 2-finger pleat. Some places it's called a 2-point pleat. And then we're going to tack it at the top right here. So it'll spread open there at the bottom. And that's called a Euro, 2-point Euro pleat. So that's what the pleats will look like when we're finished. Alright. I'll see you back at the curtain rod.